You grow up in a place where the heat has a physical weight. It presses down on the tin roofs of the favelas until the air shimmers with something that looks like hope but smells like sewage. You are 19 years old. Your father was a bricklayer who died of a heart attack at 42 because his body simply gave up on the math of survival. Your mother washes clothes for people who live in the air-conditioned high-rises you can see from your window but are not allowed to enter. You learn early that the world is divided into two categories: those who wait for permission and those who take it. You decide you are tired of waiting. You don't join the organization because you want to be Scarface. You join because you are good with numbers and you are invisible. You start as a lookout, a halcón, sitting on a plastic chair on the corner for 12 hours a day, reporting police movement via a burner phone. You memorize license plates. You track shift changes. You notice that the federal police patrolled the North Sector every 45 minutes, but the municipal police avoid it entirely on Tuesdays. You put this in a report. A lieutenant named Vargas reads it. He looks at you, really looks at you, for the first time. He sees what the world missed. You are not a thug. You are an analyst. 6 months later, you are not sitting on a corner. You are driving a modified Ford F-150 with a false bottom in the bed that holds 40 kilos of product wrapped in carbon paper and coffee grounds to confuse the dogs. You are a ghost. You drive the corridor of silence, a 300-mile stretch of highway, where the cartel pays a monthly retainer to the federal commanders to look the other way. You learn the specific frequency of fear. It is the sound of a siren that chirps once and then fades. It is the vibration of your phone in your pocket when you are 5 miles from a checkpoint. You are good at this. You are careful. You don't spend your money on gold chains or loud women. You buy your mother a washing machine so she doesn't have to scrub until her knuckles bleed. You pay for your sister's private school tuition in cash, wrapped in a grocery bag. You tell them you work in logistics for a shipping company. It is not a lie. You just don't specify what you ship. Then you meet Alina. It happens on a Tuesday, your day off. You are at a university library, the one place where nobody asks who you are or where your money comes from. You are reading about architectural design because in another life you wanted to build things, not hide them. She drops a stack of books. You pick them up. Introduction to Criminal Psychology. The History of Narco-Politics. You hand them back. She smiles. It is the kind of smile that doesn't just light up a room, it disarms it. She has eyes the color of honey and a laugh that makes you forget, for 3 seconds, that you have a burner phone in your pocket that links you to 3 felonies. You talk. She is smart, sharp, idealistic. She thinks the world can be fixed. You know it can't, but listening to her makes you want to believe it can. You start meeting for coffee, then dinner. Then late-night drives where you talk about everything except your job. You become 2 people. During the day, you are El Contador, the logistics specialist who routes shipments through the blind spots of border surveillance. You calculate fuel costs, bribe allocations, and risk percentages. At night, you are just Mateo, a guy who loves a girl who smells like vanilla and old paper. You fall in love with her, not because she is beautiful, but because she is clean. She is the only thing in your life that hasn't been touched by the grime of the business. When you are with her, you don't look at the exits. You don't count the seconds between heartbeats. You feel safe. That safety is a lie. 3 months in, she invites you to dinner at her parents' house. It is a big house in the secure zone, the kind with high walls and private security patrols. You are nervous. You wear a button-down shirt that feels tight around the neck. You bought a bottle of expensive wine. You park your car 3 blocks away because you don't want anyone to see the license plate. You walk in. The house smells like lemon, polish, and stability. Alina introduces you. Her mother is kind. Then her father walks in. He is tall, broad-shouldered, with a haircut that screams government issue. He shakes your hand. His grip is iron. He looks you in the eye, and you feel a cold drop of sweat roll down your spine. You know this man. Not personally, but you know the type. You have studied men like him in dossiers Vargas showed you. You have seen his face in grainy surveillance photos taken outside the U.S. consulate. His name is Agent Miller. He is the regional director of the DEA, the man responsible for the task force Shadow that has been dismantling your organization's distribution cells for the last 6 months. He smiles. It is a polite predator smile. Elena tells me you work in logistics, Mateo, he says. That's a busy field in this city. You freeze. The air leaves the room. You are standing in the living room of the man whose entire career is dedicated to putting you in a concrete box for the rest of your life. You are holding a glass of wine, and your hand does not shake. That is your training. You smile back. It has its challenges, sir, mostly supply chain issues. He laughs. He doesn't know, not yet. He thinks you are just a boy dating his daughter. But you look at the photos on the mantel. Miller shaking hands with the president. Miller in tactical gear, standing next to a seized shipment. A shipment you routed. A shipment that cost the cartel $3 million and to mend their lives. You sit down for dinner. You pass the bread. You compliment the roast. You listen to Miller talk about his golf game. And under the table, your leg is bouncing like a piston engine. You are a spy in the house of the enemy, and the enemy is pouring you iced tea. You realize then that you have crossed a line you can never uncross. You are sleeping with the daughter of the man who hunts you. And the terrifying part isn't that you want to run. It's that you look at Alina, laughing at her father's joke, and you know you won't leave. You calculate the risk. You do the math. The probability of survival drops to single digits. You stay for dessert. You survive the dinner. You survive the handshake at the door where Miller grips your palm for a second too long, his eyes scanning your face like a barcode reader. You walk to your car, your shirt sticking to your back. You sit in the dark and realize something terrifying. You are now the most valuable asset the cartel has. And nobody knows it yet. 2 weeks later, you are back at the house. It's movie night. You are on the couch with Elena. Miller is in his office, door ajar. You tune out the movie. You tune into the frequency of the enemy. Thursday, Miller says into his phone, 0300 hours. The warehouse on District 9. We have confirmation the shipment moves then. Your heart stops. District 9. That's Vargas's main hub. That's 500 kilos of product and your brother-in-law on the night shift. You have a choice. You can let the raid happen, let Miller win, and keep your hands clean. Or you can use the information. You excuse yourself to the bathroom. You turn on the faucet. You pull out the burner phone taped behind the toilet tank. You text Vargas 3 words, move it. Tonight, Thursday comes. Miller kicks down the doors of District 9. He finds nothing but dust. The next day, Vargas calls you in. He is eating soup at a plastic table. He looks at you with eyes that have seen men dissolve in acid. You have good instincts, kid, he says. We moved the product an hour before the Fed showed up. How did you know? You don't blink. The federal police were too quiet on the radio. It felt wrong. Vargas stares. He doesn't see a rat. He sees a prodigy. He slides an envelope across the table. $10,000. Your cut for saving the shipment. You take it. You feel sick. You just got paid for betraying the father of the woman you love. The double life begins to bleed. You are sleeping 3 hours a night. Every siren makes you jump. You are clapping at Elena's graduation next to Miller. Both of you proud of the same girl, both protecting her from the other. Then the trap snaps shut. Vargas promotes you to the inner circle. He calls a meeting. He is angry. The D is getting too close again. We need to send a message, Vargas says. We don't touch Miller yet. We touch what he loves. He clicks a remote. A photo appears on the projector. It is Alina. She is walking out of the library. She is smiling. We grab the girl, Vargas says, his voice flat. We make Miller trade his files for his daughter. A life for a legacy. The room nods. The men around you see leverage. You see the only clean thing in your life about to be destroyed. Vargas looks at you. Mateo, you know the university district. You know the routes. You run the logistics on the snatch. We take her Tuesday. You nod. You have 2. If you hesitate, if you show even a flicker of recognition, you are dead, and she is dead. I can do it, you say. Your voice sounds like a stranger's. You walk out. You get into your truck. You drive until you are in the middle of nowhere, and you scream until your throat is raw. You have 72 hours. You can warn Miller and go to prison. You can run with Alina and be hunted by both sides. Or you can do the job. You can be the monster to ensure the monster doesn't bite too hard. You look at your phone. A text from Alina. Dad's working late Tuesday. Want to come over? You stare at the screen. You do the math. The equation has no solution. You start the truck. You are not going to Elena's. You are going to burn it all down Tuesday, 8 p.m. The The sun is setting over the university district. Vargas's team is 2 blocks away in a nondescript van. They are waiting for your signal. You are the logistics chief. You control the route. You look at your phone. You have 1 bullet in the chamber, and it's not made of lead. It's made of data. You type a message to Vargas. Target, moving. Intercept at Sector 4. Sector 4 isn't the library. Sector 4 is the parking lot of the Federal Police Headquarters. Then you text Miller. Anonymous tip. Cartel hit squad. Sector 4 now. You just started a war to create a diversion. You pull up to the library curb in your black sedan. Alina is waiting. She smiles when she sees you, dropping her bag. She gets in. I thought you were working, she says. You don't smile back. You lock the doors. You drive fast. I am? You say you drive her, not to her house, but to the U.S. consulate gates. The sirens start wailing behind you. The city is erupting. Vargas's men are walking into a meat grinder. Miller's men are closing the trap. Alina looks at you. She sees the sweat on your neck. She sees the gun tucked between the seats. The smile vanishes. Mateo, she whispers. Who are you? This is the moment that kills you. Not the bullet, but the look in her eyes. The realization that the boy she loves doesn't exist. You are just a logistics problem. She needs to survive. Get out, you say. Your voice is glass. Walk to the gate. Don't look back, Mateo, go. You scream. It's the first time you've ever raised your voice at her. It works. She scrambles out, terrified, running toward the Marines guarding the consulate. You watch her cross the line. She is safe. She is on American soil. She is gone. You throw your phone out the window. You drive south until the gaslight comes on. Then you walk. 6 months later, you are working as a mechanic in a small coastal town in Uruguay. You have a new name. You have grease under your fingernails. You speak little. You listen less. You see it on the news in a bar. A massive D-bust. The Sinaloa cell dismantled. Agent Miller receiving a medal, and in the background, standing next to him, is Elena. She looks older. She looks sad. She looks at the camera for a split second, and you wonder if she is looking for you. She isn't. She's looking for Mateo. You buried him the night you chose her life over your life. You pay for your beer. You walk out into the rain. You are alive. You are free. But you know the truth about survival. It's just a slower way of dying alone. This story is fiction, but somewhere right now, someone is burning their entire life down to save the person they love. If this one hit you, drop a comment. See you in the next one.